Welcome back. Today, using two different types of fabric, pins, scissors, and a sewing machine, we're going to be making a tote bag, perfect for the farmer's market. So I picked two different cotton fabrics. I had this really fun food themed one, which would be the outside of the bag. And then I got this more subtle red fabric that will be the liner of the tote bag as well as the handles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these out into the shape of the tote bag, and then we will start sewing. So here is my tote bag cut out. So because there is not enough room on the spot where I normally would be cutting out and showing you the video, so I do it on the floor. So the sides, it is 24 inches from the top to the bottom. Basically, you can do a 24-inch by 22-inch rectangle. And then what I did at the bottom was I cut out two little 3-inch squares from either side, and that's how we're gonna get like some dimension to our bag. I did this both for the outside fabric, which is the food fabric, as well as the inside fabric, which is like the red with the white circles. So what I've done is I have laid out my outside of my bag. So this is the right side, and then I'm going to put the other piece down so they're right sides together, and I'm going to pin them up along the bottom and the sides. These little cutouts that I made, I'm leaving that. I'm not going to pin it, I'm not going to sew it yet. I'm just going to leave all of this open and just doing the bottoms and the sides. So here is my pinned up outside of my bag along the sides and the bottom. You can see those two little squares. I left those alone. I'm now going to repeat that same process for the lining. So as you can see, I have the right sides together, and I'm just going to pin up the side, the bottom of it, as well as the other side. So now I'm going to sew up the sides as well as sew up the bottom of it, but I'm gonna leave this open, so I'm not gonna sew that. So here is the outside of my tote bag, all sewn up, the bottom and the sides. As you can see, that little square that I was talking about earlier, it is not sewn up. So this is still open, you can still get your hand in there. And what we're gonna do is actually bring those two edges together, kind of like to clamp in like a clamshell, you could think about it that way. And we're gonna use that same clamshell idea for our lining, just bringing those two edges together and pinning. So here is the outside of my bag. I have that square. I'm bringing those edges together. I make sure to kind of fold down the extra fabric for when I did the other seam. I'm just going to pin these so that everything is lined up nice and neat, so I can take that straight seam across. I will repeat this for the other side as well as the lining. So now I have all four of those edges pinned up and ready to take a straight seam across. Then, since I have a little bit more room with this fabric, these are the handles. So there's a couple different ways you could have done this. Just with the way that my fabric was laid out, I cut out kind of like a front piece and then a back piece for each handle. And I measured it at the moment was actually, I believe it's 22 inches. What I'm gonna say with this is that you can really make it how big or small as you want as far as like the length of the handle goes. So the width is just 3 inches, but with how long you want your handle, that's gonna depend on, I think, a little bit more of your size. Do you want a bag that's bigger? Do you want it smaller? Do you want to put it over your shoulder? What do you want? At the end of this, I will be sure to include in the description box what size I ended up going with. I left it big as the 22 inches. I'm gonna play around with it when I attach it to my bag to see what really works best for me. So for my handles, since I ended up cutting out 2 pieces, what I'm gonna do is lay them right side together. So mind you, these pieces are very long, so I'll just be showing part of it. I'm going to lay them right side together, line it all up, and then I'm gonna be pinning 3 of the 4 sides. So I'll pin this side, and this side, and leave the other end open. And that's actually going to be our entire handle. And I'll repeat it for this handle as well as the second handle. And then I will sew all the way around and then turn them right side out, and we'll have our 2 handles done for our bag. And here is the strap all pinned, so I'm going to take a seam down that end, the short end, and then the other long end. So here is my handle all sewn up. So what I'm going to do is trim off any extra fabric as well as loose threads. And then I'm going to turn this right side out. So at that end we did not sew up. I'm going to open that and then just turn it right side out from there. And here are my 2 completed handles. So they are now ready to be ironed, so we can press them so they're a little neater looking, and then we can add them to the bag. So this is now where everything starts to come together. So we have the outside of our bag, we have our lining, and then we have our handles. And what we're gonna do is we're going to, with right sides together, insert the outside of our bag into our lining. And I'll show you in a second what that looks like, and then we will attach the handles in there. So here is the lining of my fabric, and then here is the outside piece for my fabric. And I'm going to put that outside piece into the inside with right sides together. So here's what it looks like. It's a little neater looking. I added a couple pins just so that everything stayed in place. And what I'm going to do now, as kind of an intermediate step before sewing, is pin the lining to the outside. So here's everything nice and neat and lined up. You can see I have the lining of my bag attached to the outside. And what I'm going to do is you're going to leave a gap. That way when it comes to sewing, we're able to turn it right side out. So I put 2 pins so I know where that's going to be. Now the next step is we're actually adding our straps. So I measured about 1 inch in on either side, and I added my strap on the outside. What you're going to want to do is pin the strap to the outside fabric that we just kind of put into the lining. I don't want to get the other pieces, but we're going to pin it onto our fabric. And then once we pin it there, we're actually going to put that strap into the bag. So now I'm going to the other side of my bag, taking the other end of the strap and pulling it up, and I'm going to line it up so it's about 1 inch away from the end of the bag itself. And you can pull it up to however big or how long you want your strap. And I'm going to pin this in similar to how I did on the other side. Then I will pin the bag back on top so that it's easy to sew. I will then repeat this process for the other strap that is on the back of my bag. And then the straps will be attached to the bag and will be ready for us to take that straight seam all the way across the bag, leaving that gap still allowing us to turn it. So my seam is now complete all the way on the top, and I have that little opening where I'm able to turn my bag right side out. So that's what I'm going to do now, is just turn this right side out and see what it looks like. So here is my bag, almost complete. So you can see the lining, the outside of it. It's looking really good, and it has those straps attached. So there is still a small hole at the top from where we have to turn it. So we will have to take a top stitch all the way around the bag so that we partly close up that hole, but also just to give it a little bit neater of a look. I'm gonna go ahead though and press this so that some of those wrinkles come out. Then they'll also make it easier for me to know when I do the top stitch where to line everything up exactly. For the top stitch, I ended up pinning the opening. That way I made sure that the fabrics do catch each other. I'm not having to worry about missing part of the fabric, missing that lining, and having that gap still opened. So now I'm just going to go all the way around the top of my bag and take a very, very close top stitch, probably with about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. With that seam done, we are on to our final step of just trimming off these extra little strings, and then our bag is going to be complete. And here's our bag. So once again, it's a little too big to show on the table, but as you can see, we have that really nice lining, and you can see the top stitch as well. We don't have any openings. We also have the really fun outside fabric, and the handles work really well. So let's try to take it to a farmer's market and see what happens.